color got, the drawing of lots. And I think this game was kind of a classic amateur versus a master. The difference was simply too much, the playing strength. And therefore, maybe the game is not that interesting, but I've done this before. I will try to make this perhaps educational and try to demonstrate classic mistakes by my opponent in the game and what you can learn from his mistakes, and hopefully just learn something. So obviously, since I have this slide, he violated some of these principles, but it's worth it to go over the basic opening principles, which everybody should know. Control the center, develop your pieces, and somebody's at knight before bishop, so that's generally the way it goes. Get your king to safety, very important of course, and then you have something like don't move the queen too early and don't move the same piece twice. But like with every principle, it has its exceptions, but in general, if you go by the principles, we can't be doing too badly. So let's go to the game. I'm playing black. And I played this guy once before, and I couldn't remember the result, but pretty sure I beat him. But I remember I had some trouble with him, and he had to blunder for me to win. But that was many years ago, and my game has come a long way since then, and especially my confidence and way of playing against low-rated players. Used to be so nervous back in the day, and used to have trouble scoring against low-rated, but somehow it's just a mental state. You just have to believe that you're better, and you will win somehow. So okay, he plays d4. Nothing wrong with that, and I decide to play a Benoni or King's Indian. I don't want to play. I'm thinking about switching to d4, d5 with black against stronger players, but I want something a little bit more active. Well, maybe not active, more active, but something where they can't go for the exchange line. Like in the French, exchange French, and in the Slav, they just take on d5, chop it off, and pray. So anyway, I went for c5. And right away he makes kind of a meek move, which I kind of expected, e3. And already this is a little bit of, well, what to say, he's surrendering a little bit, I think, with this move. It's a very meek move, and I think already black can be happy. Note that, okay, if he knows what he's doing, he can transpose maybe to some lines in the Grunfeld, which are, well, pretty harmless, but anyway, white is at least equal. But overall, e3 is not the move many strong players would make here. d5 is the move to make. So, okay, not violating any principles yet, but this move is a little too timid for my taste and most players' taste. So I go on g6. And already I'm envisioning that I will take on d4 and just play d5 at some point, hoping to get an isolated pawn and going from there. He plays knight c3. Again, nothing wrong with that. Controls the e4 square, although it doesn't really need to be supported, and I would prefer to play the king's knight first, but this is of course okay. And now he plays knight f3, so nothing wrong with that. I go on with my development, get the king to safety. And now he starts to go wrong. Bishop to d2. So okay, he's developing a piece, and like we looked at, we want to develop our pieces, and well, he did develop knights before bishops. However, he's kind of neglecting this one get your king to safety. And I move like bishop d2. And development in general, when you're developing pieces, try to be efficient. Don't commit a piece if you don't know what's a good square for it, or if you can develop another piece first. And that truly applies here. It's much more logical to move the king's bishop somewhere out here, and then get the king to safety, and then start playing the game. Although I found that maybe bishop e2 is more normal here. That's the normal way to play. Get your king to safety, and another bad point of bishop d2. Number one, it blunts the diagonal of the queen, which is important in controlling the d4 square. And also, it's just simply not clear at this point what you want to do with the bishop on c1. So, I could take on d4. And if you want to recapture with a pawn, let's say you play something like this. And if you want to capture with a pawn, all of a sudden you want to develop the bishop here, or maybe here. Not there, but I dropped it. Okay, maybe there. But you see, if you play bishop d2, and then you want to put it on g5 or f4, you're moving the same piece twice, and that's generally in violation of principles. So bishop d2, not the move that I like. So okay, now I thought it's a good time to take on d4, because his control over d4 is lessened, and he takes back with the pawn. Maybe you should take back with the knight. Okay, of course we just have an equal position here. I think black is fully equalized, then I will play something like d5, or perhaps knight c6. I don't mind the opening. Maybe we could play something more unbalanced, like the Leningrad. I thought about that for a bit, but sometimes you're just happy to equalize and then go from there. And if you are a stronger player, you should be confident that after you equalize, you can start to outplay your opponent somehow in some way. But he took with the pawn, which I was pretty happy with, and not d5. And my plan is to play against Decisive with the pawn. I think I had some position like this against weaker players in the past. If you compare this to a regular Grunfeld, then maybe white will have a pawn on the c file, and black as well. So it doesn't have an isolated pawn. Or, sorry, on e4. Pawn on the e file. At least he will not have an isolated pawn in the Grunfeld. From here, I have a simple plan of just attacking this pawn. I can retreat the knight, put this knight out, attacks the pawn, the bishop attacks the pawn, the queen attacks the pawn, and I can let the bishop participate in that fight by exchanging for this piece. So overall, white has some troubles here. Okay. However, he chose another move. Well, given the circumstances, maybe not a bad move, but somehow, I don't want to call it a beginner move, but I just know you play the move c5. It somehow looks good on a somewhat artificial, I don't know, basic level, but generally you have to have some good reasons to play this move, like control over e5 and such. I think generally such a structure would be better without a fianchettoed bishop, because now this pawn is pretty weak. It has no pawns which can protect it, and this bishop is ideally placed to put pressure on this pawn. So, okay, up to now I've basically made more or less basic opening moves, nothing spectacular. And basically, more or less, I'm not making any spectacular moves in this game, so I invite you to play along, try to find my moves, just logical moves. Okay, his last two moves, c5 and bishop d2. Albeit of course he took on d4, but c5 and bishop d2. They had left the pawn on e4, sorry, on d4 a little bit weak, so at this point it's probably logical to try to start to attack this pawn and finish development. So suggest a move here, and I think there are only two candidate moves. The move that I played, and also knight c6 is of course very logical. Just get the piece out, attack d4, and go from there. The move I chose is familiar to me from some different lines, knight e4. And the main point of course is that white can't take because I retake, and the d4 pawn is weak and is indeed falling on the next move because the knight has to move. So obviously that's good for black. Another added value of this move is that I'm threatening to take on d2, which I would be pretty happy with. I would have the bishop pair, an uncontested monster on g7, and as an added bonus, white just lost a piece that can defend the pawn. So overall that would be pretty good for me. And it kind of has a consequence of his previous bad moves, bishop d2. He has to make a move that breaks another opening principle. If you go back here, don't move the same piece twice. Everybody knows that. But now he kind of has to, and he played the move bishop e3. And this means that he's falling behind in development a little bit. On we go. I continue with logical moves. I need to start developing my queen side and keep pressure on d4. So perhaps two candidate moves. I chose knight c6. Probably nothing wrong with bishop g4 as well. And now yet another strange move by my opponent. He played a3. And as you can see, I've highlighted his king, which is stuck in the center, and we already talked about get your king to safety, develop your pieces. a3 doesn't develop a piece, doesn't control the center, doesn't get your king to safety. And I made a little note here that moves like a3 and h3 are hardly ever called for in the opening and have to have a very specific reason to be made. And to make the move here, I can't see any logic. He's not even threatening to play b4. He can't play b4 because the knight is hanging on c3. And I wasn't intending on taking on c3. Another bad point is that if I simply take on c3, the move a3 is completely useless. So again, he felt like he wanted to fortify c5 somehow with b4, but the problem is you need to develop your pieces, you need to get your king to safety, and b4, what does it do really? You have bigger goals, more important goals, not to start thinking about the queen side at this point. So, what move did I make here? Perhaps I didn't really appreciate knight takes c3 during the game. I just thought it fortified the center. By the way, I don't know if that registered with the sound, but I just farted. Just like to point that out for some reason. I didn't really appreciate this move, knight takes c3, because I thought it would fortify center, but probably still good for me, something like queen a5 and going from there, and then playing a similar plan like what I played in the game, which I don't want to reveal just yet. So what would be some basic moves to play here. I think the move played in the game is strongest. Something like bishop g4 comes to mind. And also we might have a plan of perhaps playing b6. It's usually the reaction to pawn on c5. He doesn't want us taking b takes c5 because that would give us too much control over the center. And c takes b6, queen takes b6, something like this. Leaves our queen pretty well posted, adding pressure to d4 and putting pressure on b2. And overall black is doing pretty well here. Only problem with this move. Well, no, okay. Saw some ghost here. But anyway, I think the move I chose here was the most thematic and logical. I played e5. His king is stuck in the center, so it makes sense to try to open things up, especially since due to his strange moves, bishop d2 to e3 and a3, I'm now a little bit ahead in development, so I think this is very logical. He took an e4, and what move did I make now? Well, first I would like to consider that if he plays something like d takes e5, then I was intending to take on c3, which wrecks his pawn structure. Now he has 3 pawn islands and a doubled isolated pawn on the c file. And I will take on e5 next. And well, something like this looks pretty good for me, right? I think white is in slight trouble here, and I would probably go ahead and win a pawn here pretty soon. If I can't win it right away, I can increase the pressure with a move like b6 and open up these 2 files for my rooks to attack his weak pawns. I think black is doing really well in a position like this. But he took an e4. Let's look at that. And what did it do now? Taking on e4 could be logical, but it has the only problem is that I don't get to rack his structure like I did in the previous line with knight takes e3. So I had a different move in mind here. I played e takes d4. Yeah, I forgot I wanted to talk a little bit about after I played knight e4. Let's go back a little bit. I said that in this position I didn't really consider knight takes e3, and the reason for that is okay, when playing against a stronger, weaker player, I personally like to get the win as clean as possible, nothing fancy, no risks. If you watch my videos so far, you know that I play a pretty positional style. Try to just squeeze my opponent out. And a very important principle that I learned some years ago in a discussion with a fellow player is that, if possible, try to make the weaker player take decisions. Don't make the decisions too easy for him. If you exchange rooks in an open file, say with black rook takes e1, both the grandmaster and the beginner would play rook a1 takes e1. And that means that the rating doesn't matter in that decision. Everybody will make the same decision. So we have to make the rating difference matter in decisions. And what I mean by that is, if I play knight takes c3, everybody will play b takes c3. So there's no decision to be made here. And I think I mentioned this in an earlier video. I can't remember which one, but it's very important to give your opponent a chance to make decisions, and the more decisions he has to make, the more likely is that he will make the blunder he is supposed to make because of the rating difference. So already here after e5 he has to take decisions, and already here after e takes d4 he makes the wrong decision. He took a piece last move, and I took a pawn on this move, which means that for the moment I am down a piece. But I am of course regaining the piece, unless he can make an intermediate move with either the knight or the bishop that attacks something, and then on the next move he can retreat the other piece and be a piece up. Of course that is not happening. I thought he would play here knight takes d4, and I think I was doing pretty well in that line. If I take here, I'm heading d4 3 times, and he's only defending it 2 times, so he has to move the knight. And if he doesn't take on c6, which he has to do, I will take on b2. So he has to take on c6. Now I take back, and now b2 is attacked and is in trouble. And if he tries to simplify and protect the pawn, then he's in trouble. His pawn is falling. He would have to play an ugly move like bishop c1, and I attack the other pawn on c5. The problem with this is of course that his king is stuck here, and this would cost him heavy material losses. So already I think he was in slight trouble here. But the move he made was even worse. He played bishop g5. I like to talk about before. If you can make an intermediate move, attack something, then you can retreat with the other piece. And here's his point about tactics versus a stronger player. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Double check and find out why. And it doesn't take a long time to figure things out here. Bishop g5, I attack his queen. What can he do? Obviously, if nothing else, I can play f6. And I'm still attacking 2 pieces, and I will regain my piece. Probably at least a good game, but like I had already seen, I have a stronger move. Simply hope you found it. Pretty easy, just queen e8, pinning the knight, and I will regain it next move. And now the game is basically over, and at this point, yeah, I knew that could start to relax a little bit, although you shouldn't really, but I did. Bishop e5, finally developing this bishop, but a little too late, king is stuck in the center. Now I have to regain my piece. I'll take on e4, and how would you take on e4? Taking with the pawn is better, but okay, you can take with the queen, but taking with the pawn is clearly better. But then you would have to have figured out what to do against knight takes d4, bishop takes c6. It might look like he's regaining the pawn back because of the pin, but I have a simple move here, something like queen e5. I attack the knight and the bishop, and unfortunately for him, he can't go here because I take, and if he moves the bishop back, say like here, then I can, among other things, play this move here, which will win this knight probably, pretty much. And I can also take on g2, and if he tries to defend g2 with this, then during the game I had seen queen e5, although this is only the 5th best move according to Rivka, but this is good enough for a win. And if knight takes e6, I retake, and then queen takes g5. I have given up the exchange, but on the other hand, I'm completely winning. Can't really do anything here. If he defends the rook by moving the king, then rook d8 picks up the queen, and this is no better. This is completely winning. So he can't take with the knight on d4, so he tried bishop takes c6. And how would we retake? We retake with the queen, that's the best move. Knight takes d4, attacking my queen. And next move is pretty obvious. I win a pawn and attack 2 pieces. That's the only move that defends both pieces. But now I just increase the pressure. Again, like I said, no fancy moves, no difficult moves really in this game. Just simply rook d8. Attacking the knight on d4. And now I think he has only 2 moves. One is rook c1, after it's a play here. And black is clearly on top of opponent with great initiative. The other move is queen c2. And how do we meet that? Bishop takes d4 does not work because of the x-ray, and he wins the piece back, and he has opposite colored bishops, which is pretty much the best he could hope for. But still, black should win, but it's too much of a consolidation considering how good my position was. So we meet queen c2 simply with, yes, queen takes c2. And then we simply take the pawn b2. Rook 2 pawns with the bishop pair. He has to move the rook. And now what? You have to move the bishop. What's the best way? Bishop c3. Why? To disrupt his castling, he has to move the king. King e2. And now we have some logical moves. Find one. Bishop g4 might be okay. Bishop e6 trying to come to c4 is okay. I chose b6, which takes care of the pawn on b7 and takes care of it in a way that it's not undefended after I move the bishop, and I open a square on a6 for the bishop to go to hassle the white king a little bit. We played f3. Bishop a6. He has to move the king. Now my rooks are connected and ready to enter the game. Plus I'm up 2 pawns, so pretty easy should be from here. I took an f3. No particular reason, I just felt like he had to take with a pawn, and then his pawn, so I just joined it, and I didn't see any benefit of just keeping the pawn there. So he took, and now we just want to consolidate somehow. We're up material, so we try to simplify as much as we can. But like in this position, we have the 2 bishops, and we don't want to give up a positional advantage like the 2 bishops unless you are getting a clear simplification into an ending you know is winning. So for the moment, I'm not looking to take on c2 immediately. I'm just trying to make something happen in terms of tactics. And for instance, I have something like this in mind. He didn't play this move, but we can imagine something like this happening. Rook b3, and this would run into bishop e1, and I win the exchange. So I had something like this in mind when playing bishop d3. It doesn't hurt to play for tricks against lower rated players, and of course this can't be a bad square. Has more scope on d3 than on a6, so not a bad move in general. And he played rook e3, rook b3. You know, again, like I said, we want to simplify, but we have the bishops, and I don't want to give him chances by giving him opposite colored bishops. So I'm not taking on c2, allowing him to take on c3, which would create that imbalance. Although again, we should win easily, but no need to make things more difficult for yourself. So I'll simply retreat the bishop, and I chose f6 instead of g7 because of the possibility of bishop a4 check, which I thought might be useful here because The king is a little bit short on squares here. Okay, he played knight b4. And now bishop c4. Has to retreat the rook. And again, okay, I kind of skipped letting you guess some moves there, but what did I do now? Well, there are plenty of moves. You could start to introduce the other rook, rook c8, followed by maybe kicking the knight away with a5 and p5. I had another idea. I played bishop 8 for check. Not just a check, but I thought he could have some problems, some tactical problems in some lines. King g2, and my idea here was to follow up with what move? Yes, rook e8. And the tactical problems that I talked about could arise here if he plays a move like bishop f2. And I have rook e2, pinning this bishop, which he has to defend, and then he has trouble after a move like rook d2. I attack the rook, which has to move, and then I can take an f2. Or he doesn't move it and take an f1 and win the exchange. Either way, a bad proposition for him. Also something like bishop d4, I felt like he would get in trouble here after rook e2 check. I can't go to f1 or g1, it's too passive, and if he goes to h3, I hadn't calculated, but I felt like his king was in big trouble here if I play something like, well, I hadn't decided, but I hadn't mind a move like g5. This starts to feel cramped, and I have a feeling that black could find a way to make it work. I'm threatening bishop e6 checkmate, so he would have to make a move like this. And yeah, I don't see any immediate mate, but I just felt like he was in trouble here. You know, bishop e6, the king would have to go to h5. I don't know. Maybe it's not as good as I thought, but intuitively I felt like it was problematic for him. At least, I was looking for a quick way to end the game. But anyway, he played rook b to c1. I hadn't really considered that much. My first instinct was to play b5, but well, I kind of blew it now. Should just move. Well, you can move the bishop. Probably nothing wrong with that. b5 probably okay, but let's choose what I think is the most logical move. Activate the rook. Now he has to take care of the bishop. And again, bishop d4. I probably would have gone for the line with the king and the trouble. Okay, another option, of course, is just to go back with the bishop and then play bishop e6. And he's still in some trouble, but I hadn't really decided. I probably would have a little bit of a think in this position. But it didn't. He went bishop f2. And okay, obviously he had seen rook e2, but after rook c1, then he has this move, rook c2. Again, of course, rook e2 was a completely logical move, which I forgot to let you find, but of course you would. And playing rook e2, I had a simplification in mind. Like I talked about earlier, we have two bishops, and we don't want to simplify us unless we get a completely clear ending. And yeah, about here is about the only sort of fancy move that I make. So I found a nice way here to simplify into a clearly one ending. Of course, this is clearly winning, but a pawn ending is easier to explain as a win than this position. I played bishop to f1. Maybe a little bit too fancy, but it's easy to calculate that nothing's wrong here. He took with the rook, but if he takes with the king, then I play this move. Oops, sorry about that. play this move, and obviously then this is a bad move because I take with check. Oh, sorry, I take with check. You can't go here because rook c3 picks up the pawn, so here I win another pawn, and of course completely winning up 3 pawns, and like I showed in the pattern recognition, this just moves by itself, even if the king was over here. This more or less wins by force. And if he makes a more logical move like knight b4, I just wanted to simplify even more, like this, bishop c5. He can't allow me to take because then we have a pawn ending, and knight c2 is the only move, and it's just completely winning by now. Just bring the king somewhere to the center, maybe over to the queen side, and I make a pass pawn on either side and pick up the win. He took with the rook, and now rook takes c2, and now he finally resigned. He could have done so a while ago, but here he saw that he couldn't resist, and the continuation would be something like this. I made the simplification that we talked about into a K1 ending, and no matter what it does, I will just make a pass pawn on either side. You know, just bring your king to the center and then make a pass pawn. If he tries to contest the pass pawn on the queen side, you make one on the queen side, and there's nothing that I can do. Easy win. So okay, well, I hope this is okay. I kind of didn't prepare that much. Just went into the game. Like I said, Wednesday at 7:30 Icelandic time. I will play the third round against a player rated just under 2100. A capable player, not a walkover. I won't have to work for the win, but hopefully I get it. So that's it for now. Really don't have anything else to add, so I'd just like to thank you for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye bye.